This conference will now be recorded.
What? No, not yet. Oh, I'll bring it up when I get it. Oh, okay. He said he'll bring it over when they get it. What? Listen, I'm sorry about you so late. The reason why I came is I used to get off the time.
Karen, are you on?
Yes.
I'm here.
Karen's
I'm
on.
here.
Ike,
I'm
you're
here.
on.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Yep,
get on
I'm
the
here.
computer.
Okay.
I'm
I
here.
got Karen, I got Anita, I got Bob. Ike, I heard you, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. I got to check with Jason. Okay.
Tina,
All
Tina's
right.
on.
Hello, I'm here.
All right, Colleen, you're on.
I'm on.
Yaniv, you're on. Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay. By the authority vested in me, I hereby declare this meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that may come before it. Ms. Checo, if you could do roll call.
Councilmember Tatino,
Present.
Councilmember Griffin,
Here.
Councilmember Flanagan,
Present.
Councilmember Barton,
Here.
Councilmember Stokely,
Here.
Vice President Sokolow,
Here.
President Leonard,
Here.
Mayor Aronson.
Here.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Steph. Thank you for joining us for our regularly scheduled public work session. At this time, please mute all your audio lines. No public comments will be permitted during the course of the meeting until the designated public comment section located on the agenda. You will be notified during the meeting when public comments are permitted. You may also submit comments via email to brogers@conshockenpa.gov. A member of the Borough Administration will read public comments submitted in this manner. For all comments, please include your name and address for the record. Thank you in advance for your cooperation during the remote meeting. Prior to the work session, council held an executive session on legal and property matters. The first item on the agenda under presentations is the Fire Department Annual Update. Mr. Carlin from Washington Fire Company, are you here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Madam President, Madam Vice President, Borough Council. I appreciate and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Give you a little bit about myself. I've been a borough resident for 53 years, living in the 6th Ward. I am current president of Washington Hosenstein Fire Engine Company and have been in that position for the past 14 years. In total, I've been active firefighter in Conshohocken for 41 years. This year, the Washies will be celebrating 147 years of service to the borough, its residents, and the surrounding communities. I want to touch base on what we are today, or how it started with the facility. Early 2005, 2006, some of the past and current leaders of the fire company decided to put in a plan in place for the future of the fire company and its service with the borough residents and the communities. We started a long and, excuse me, I'm sorry. We started a long and difficult process to draw plans to build a 2-story addition to the existing firehouse that would end up doubling our base from 3 to 6. With that, we had a second floor put on for administrative offices, training, company meetings, At the time, we had our big social hall was used for community meetings, for example, like the Wawa. With that, on the second floor of the newer addition that went on and was finished up in 2007, we built a kitchen. Kitchen. Hello. A kitchen and bedrooms for personnel who would stay overnight to respond to emergencies in the borough, and also during major storm. For this to happen, we applied and got a 2% loan from the Department of Agriculture, which is the United States, the USDA, to help maximize the potential of our new space. The facility was built with zero taxpayer money. It was constructed to be an important resource to the community and the future of the fire service in Conshohocken. Another example is we wanted to be state-of-the-art space with the ability to properly house all necessary equipment owned by the borough and the fire company. In 2019, we took the opportunity to sell a portion of the building, approximately 10,000 square feet, which enabled us to satisfy our loan as well as become debt-free. As you can see today, with the ongoing construction at the lower end, along with our building being constructed, we are in the process of constructing a brand new social club. The social club, we're hoping to help us with recruitment and retention, which we are also looking at like a live-in type program that other area fire companies in the state are doing. In the last year or so, we've been having, which I feel, very productive and positive meetings with representation from the borough under the leadership of Mr. Sokolowski and Fire Chief Tim Gunning. And I know one of the discussions that we were doing in them meetings, which were once a month, and some of them sometimes were 2 a month, which I think is good. Having open communication is the joint training of the companies. Another topic we had touched on in these meetings, which Washi is very on board with the idea, and speak with Mr. Sokolowski sometimes on a daily basis. He knows feelings. With the way the facility has been built, and we at this time we've been for years housing borough-owned emergency vehicles. Part of some of these meetings we would like to help the borough with space, not let alone the emergency response vehicles, but the borough support vehicles. For example, some of the sign trailers that the borough has, and some of the I'll say mass incident type. Thank God, hope we never have that. The mass incident type support vehicles, the trailers. 2 other examples that we thought were important. We've learned that the borough will be obtaining, or in the process of obtaining, a brand new marine unit, double stack boats. With our building being so close to the water, I think that would be a good idea of something that would be stored and respond out of Washies. The other things I know we talked about in the meetings was fire department gator and the police department gator. I know the fire department gator has a small pump on it, which can be utilized for a quick response. With majority, and everybody would know, obviously our parking garage is down the lower end. And as we all know, that response times of essence. We would also, like we have in the past, offer plenty of space for any other apparatus or anything the borough deemed they could put down there. Maybe stuff that's not used every day. I can understand that, but it would be in a safe, climate-controlled environment. And again, I said the borough would decide what equipment is housed at the firehouse, and I guess there would be a program where we could rotate the equipment in and out. After talking to the membership to help out the borough and make sure that they have the space, we decided to sell a couple of our company-owned vehicles, hopefully to make good space, like I said, for Borough. Like I said, I appreciate the opportunity, Madam President, to talk with you and talk with anybody that's listening tonight. Overall, we are looking forward to continue to building a stronger relationship with the Borough Administrative Conshohocken Fire Company. I think having a secure and deafening relationship with each other will only help provide the best service we can for our community for years to come. Thank you for your time. That's it.
I know on behalf of the borough, Mr. Carlin, we really appreciate your time this evening. I too share Mr. Sokolowski's sentiments that we are very appreciative for the conversations that have happened to date with Washington Fire Company. And I know that what's been passed back up to administration and council from those conversations has been very positive. So again, appreciate your time. Looking forward to further conversations, and thank you for the update on kind of Washington Fire Company and where they're at in 2021.
Stephanie, thank you very much, and I do appreciate it. I definitely want to continue working with you guys, and like I've always said, let's leave it better than when we got it.
Yes.
Stephanie, thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. I did try and comment. I was muted and didn't realize it. Thank you so much for all your input, and we do look forward to working with you in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Leonard. You guys be safe.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, Steph.
The next item on the agenda is land use matters, public hearings, and ordinances. The first item is West 3rd Avenue Wireless Communication Facilities Zoning Hearing Board application. Mr. Johnson, if you would like to introduce that application.
Yes, thank you and good evening, everyone. This first application that will be going to the Zoning Hearing Board later this month is from an applicant of AT&T Mobility. The site we're looking at is a existing 35-foot wood utility pole located in the 100 block of West 3rd Avenue within the street right-of-way. And this pole would fall within the BR1 zoning district. The pole is owned by PECO and currently holds the electric distribution and telecommunication lines, as well as a street light. The applicant is proposing to replace the existing pole with a 43-foot tall pole, and on top of there install a cylinder-shaped wireless antenna with associated equipment mounted on the pole. The street light and all the other equipment on the pole would remain in the same location as it is now. Currently, the borough zoning code regulations are geared towards, what would be the larger type cellular towers, and doesn't really provide accommodations for these newer small cell antennas, which are the focus of this application. Therefore, a variance would be required to permit the applicant to install this type of pole-mounted antenna in the BR1 district. As part of the approval of any facility like this, the applicant is required to provide a comprehensive service plan detailing the necessity of the proposed tower. And with that, I can turn it over to the applicant's representative, Allison Frigitz, to give a presentation.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Council. My name is Allison Frigitz. I represent AT&T. With me tonight on this call is Samantha Berman. She's the site acquisition consultant from Jacobs Engineering, and Sean Paul, who is our radio frequency expert, who is ready to tell you everything you need to know about why we need this site and why this is different than the 150-foot monopoles that you're used to seeing. So without restating what your zoning officer just stated, we do need a use variance for this use. Your zoning ordinance does not provide for these kind of what we call small cells. The reality is, in this day and age, the need is just as great in the residential area as it is anywhere else, because the technology is such that, people aren't just using their cell phones for calls, but there's social media, there's video streaming, there's all of that just increases the cell phone usage, and with that comes the need for enhanced service. So AT&T has identified this area as a place where we need additional service and we need additional capacity. It's a capacity issue. And as Sean Paul can tell you, capacity is a little different from coverage, right? These small cells are designed to target a specific area and to provide better service for a significant area or a specific smaller area than the larger 150-foot macro tower. So what we're proposing is right now, as zoning officer stated, it's a 35-foot existing pole. It's a Pico pole. It's a street light right now. All we're looking to do is replace that pole with another wooden pole. We're going to replace the pole at 43 feet, and then on top of that put a small, we call it a coffee can style antenna at the top, with all the equipment concealed in a concealment shroud on the side of the pole. So there's no equipment on the ground level at all. It's all on the existing pole. So we're looking at a total height of 45 feet. So we're really just increasing it 10 feet from what it is now. And Sean, do you want to go into a little bit just the basics of why this is different from a macro site and the need for this site?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to, Allison. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I just wanted to make sure. So good evening, everyone. As Allison stated, my name is Sean Paul. I'm a radio frequency design expert. I've been in the wireless industry for 21 years, and I won't go through my lengthy career, but I will say that I've been before townships, boroughs, counties, much like yourself, in well over 400 cases of new cellular sites or cellular facilities. So basically, just a little bit of a high-level overview. So 15, 20 years ago, whenever the cellular industry was just really starting to get traction, the carriers, AT&T and Verizon and the likes of those, basically co-located or erected towers that were at high points in the general area. The objective was to try to cover as large of an area with as few sites as possible. And that worked great whenever customers were just using their devices exclusively for placing calls. As I'm sure everyone knows, that is no longer the case. In fact, quite frankly, the wireless device is probably less used for calling than it is anything else. And the demand on the wireless networks have increased exponentially. A recent study by the CDC has suggested that over 56% of all homes no longer have home phone lines. And furthermore, there's indication that people are actually abandoning their computers for one single device, which is as we refer to it, the cell phone. So again, before, the carriers would build the sites as high as possible, cover the largest area. Now, with the demand becoming almost unmanageable on the network, the carriers, AT&T and others, are implementing these small cells. And the title of a small cell really is physically it's small, but also from a coverage area, it's small. The small cells are designed intentionally to be aesthetically pleasing so that they conform with the surrounding environment, which typically is a densely populated area. History has proven that the proximity of a wireless facility to the end user is the most important thing when designing a site. And the reason for that is the closer a user is to the facility, the better the signal strength. They have a dominant server. The proposed facility that's before you this evening is in fact a small cell. It will have one antenna installed on it, which is referred to in the industry as a cantina. As Allison had mentioned, the cantina is, I would say coffee can, but more like a 5-gallon bucket on top of the pole. It's placed there and it blends in as though it's part of the pole based upon the coloring to match the pole. So quite honestly, I'm sure many of you probably have driven past small cells and never even realized it. Contrary to that, if you've driven by a monopole or a lattice tower, you probably have noticed that if you're looking. Sometimes they just blend in. And those are considered macro sites. And those are the, as I was referring to, the larger sites that were predominantly built on hilltops to cover vast areas. In the case of Conshohocken, the demand is obviously in line with the rest of the nation, and it's growing exponentially. And so the proposed facility is part of the attempt, or not the attempt, but the plan for AT&T to be able to pull back the coverage from the existing macro site, which is located on the Marriott, which is southwest from the proposed facility.
Sean, Bertie actually has up your prop maps. So can you see those? Can you see those?
Yes, I can. Yes, yeah.
Okay. So Bertie, scroll down a little bit, or you can just walk her through it, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Thank you very much. So on this map, you can see in the center of the map, that is the location of the proposed facility. And then directly southwest across the river is the West Conshohocken AT&T facility, which is on the air today, and that is on the Marriott. And basically what this map shows is the best serving site, specifically the sector. So in this case, you can see from the Marriott site location, the West Conshohocken location, the sector, if you will, that's facing towards the proposed facility is shown in a royal blue color. That is the area that if an AT&T customer were in that deep blue area, they would most likely be served by the Marriott site location. And so relative to this area, that's a relatively large coverage footprint, and it actually extends even further north. But I wanted to make sure that we had the granularity for everyone's advantage when looking at these maps. I did produce these maps. These maps were produced using an industry standard software tool. It's a propagation software tool. It takes into consideration the ground elevation. It takes into consideration the clutter types, whether it's a residential structure, if it's a commercial structure, if it's a forest, etc. In addition to that, all of the existing AT&T sites, transmitters, antenna heights, antennas are included in that software. And the intent of the software, which is not only used by AT&T but by all wireless providers, is to prevent building a new facility that does not meet the objective. As I'm sure you can imagine, that could be extremely costly and not beneficial for anyone if the AT&T were to basically build a facility that does not meet the objective. So this software tool is fairly precise. Now, it's not 100%, it's a model, but it's very, very accurate. And that is the software that was used to create this map. And it basically shows, as I said, each one of the sectors from the existing facilities that AT&T is currently transmitting from, where they are serving today. So I'm going to take, I guess we can hold the questions for later. If you have a question, feel free to chime in. The map that's displayed in front of you now, again, includes the existing AT&T facilities. However, you'll notice around the proposed facility, a new color has been introduced, the green, right? And that is the area of coverage that the proposed facility will provide. More or less, the area that the capacity will be relieved from, and any customers that are in that newly shaded green area would be covered by the facility. So you can see, and I said earlier, small cells are not only physically small, but also their coverage area is small. I believe this slide illustrates that pretty well, where when we're looking at the macro site to the south on the Marriott in comparison to the proposed facility. The location for a small cell is extremely critical because of the fact that their coverage area is so small. In order to be able to overcome local obstructions like buildings and trees, the AT&T engineers, when designing these sites and selecting locations, they also determined the required height needed. AT&T is not in the business, quite literally, of building structures higher than is needed for many reasons. Number one, cost, and number two, because speed to market is important. So if a site's able to be built to 30 feet and it's going to meet the coverage objective and it eliminates the need to go through zoning, then AT&T will absolutely build the site to 30 feet. It's times like these where it's determined that the additional height or the height that's been proposed is needed. And the goal with that is to be able to meet the coverage objective, be able to provide the relief to the adjacent macro sites, and to hopefully minimize the number of facilities that are needed. I believe already today in the borough, there are 2 small cells that are existing. You can see those on the map that are north of the proposed facility, north and also northeast. The burgundy and the yellow site locations, and that's CON 01_001 and _004. Those are small cell facilities that are currently in operation today. And again, the objective is to basically provide relief to the existing West Conshohocken site, which is located on the Marriott.
And
So
Sean, can you just,
yeah, go ahead,
sorry,
Allison.
if you could just quickly explain what would happen in the event that we did not install something in this area to the macro sites?
Sure. So ultimately, if this proposed facility were not to be installed, then the existing macro site or the West Conshohocken would reach a point of exhaust where essentially customers that are trying to gain access to the AT&T network, whether it be a phone call or a data session or streaming Netflix, very likely in some cases would not be able to gain access to the network. That includes 911 services and also first responders. So it would become very much a hindrance, and it's already. I mean, again, AT&T and the other wireless carriers, quite frankly, never really truly predicted the exponential growth that has occurred, and it continues to grow. And so this is something that just, has just morphed into a situation where the demand keeps growing and growing and growing. And the best way to mitigate that is to basically provide additional sites to become the dominant server. So you basically have bite-sized pieces in the network rather than one site and or sector covering a vast area. There are equipment limitations with the existing facilities and quite frankly with any facility in terms of how many radios can transmit, how many antennas can be installed. And I can assure you that the surrounding facilities and specifically the West Conshohocken facility, it has been maxed out in the sense of the equipment added, as much equipment that can be added to be able to support the demand. So this is the only option. And Allison, to answer your question, quite honestly, the customers would be impacted and already are at some points in terms of being able to gain access or have the speeds, the throughput speeds that they're expecting.
I don't know if council any questions for Sean, Paul, before I was just going to put up the 2 existing, because I know a lot of people have questions on what is this ultimately going to look like, and we actually have photos of the 2 that are existing in the borough. And I don't know, Brittany, can you put up, I think it was, yeah, A10 on my exhibit list. That's great. Thank you. So that's one that exists currently. And that's the other one. And that one's a street light as well. And that's exactly the antenna on top is the type we are proposing here. And the equipment's on the side of the pole. And you'll see there's no equipment on the ground.
Are there any questions from council to the applicant?
I don't have any.
I don't have any, and the only thing I can say is I never even noticed them.
That's what we like to hear.
To that point, Allison, this is Mike Peters. How you doing? We talked very briefly or emailed back and forth about whether or not your client would be agreeable to a condition that the facility would match in design type and design and type the exhibits you have as A10A and A10B, which you just showed. It's fair to say that you are agreeable to that condition?
We are, yes.
Council, if you're, again, I know you haven't really been taking direct positions with respect to applications. However, with this application, just because it is a use that you are going to be seeing more and more of, I would suggest that you simply send a letter to the zoning hearing board asking that they impose a condition that the facility, should it be approved, be consistent in design and type with exhibits A10A and A10B. And if anyone's agreeable to that, you just have to make a motion and vote on it.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion. Anita?
And a second?
I'll second it, Bob Stokely.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Motion carries, Mike.
Thank you very much, Council.
Mike, is this something that we'll put into some of our updated ordinances moving forward with the new technology?
It is, yeah. So we have an extensive new ordinance for your consideration that we're working through as we speak. So yes, we acknowledge that it's something that needs to be addressed, as Eric pointed out, and Allison as well. Our ordinance is drafted for large monopole and lattice towers, not for these. So yes, we are, not only will we do it, we are working on it as we speak, Tina. So thanks for asking.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Allison.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is 203 East 12th Avenue, lots 1, 2, and 3, zoning hearing board applications. Mr. Johnson, if you could introduce the application?
Yes, okay. So the second application to go into zoning hearing this month is a property most people would know as 203 East 12th Avenue. It is located at the corner of 12th and Hollowell Streets, fronting on each street, and there's an alley that runs behind the back of the existing property. In 2019, the applicant was granted conditional use to demolish the then existing single-family home, and subsequently was granted the final subdivision plan approval to divide the property into 3 lots, all fronting on Hollowell. In anticipation of development on each lot with a residential dwelling, the applicant is seeking a variance to permit the installation of new curb cuts on Hollowell Street with a driveway located in front of the house of each of the future houses. The Borough Zoning Code does not permit off-street parking spaces between the front wall of a building and the curb to which it faces in the BR1 district. Therefore, for the proposed driveways, variances would be required. And I can turn it over to, I believe, Jared Rath, presenting for the applicant.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Johnson. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for hearing us tonight. I haven't been here in a while. I hope you've all been well. I represent Rutowski & Trainer, Inc. They are the owner of the property. With me tonight is Rob Rutowski, if you have any questions for him or I. And as Mr. Johnson said, these 3 properties, they're located at 12th and Hollowell. They're across Hollowell from the A field. When council in 2019 granted the conditional use and the subdivision approval, our concept was to subdivide the property into 3 lots, with each lot having a single family home on it. As an update for what has happened since we were last here, the structures have been removed. The subdivision has been recorded with the Montgomery County Recorder of Deeds, so the parcel has been subdivided into 3 separate building lots. And very significantly, we have worked with the sewer authority in the borough and designed and installed the public sewer main, which we agreed to install as part of this project when we were last before you. 3 properties in the neighborhood which were not connected to the public sanitary sewer system. They had on-site septic systems. Those 3 properties have been connected to the public sanitary system. And one of those houses actually had its septic system fail and was condemned. And without the sewer main that Rutowski & Trainer installed, that house would not be inhabitable because that house didn't have enough ground to put in a new on-site septic system. The plan has not changed since we were last before you. We still plan to erect 3 single-family detached dwellings, 1 on each parcel. Each house will have a footprint of approximately 1,400 square feet. Each house will have 2 off-street parking spaces in a driveway located in the front yard of the subject, and a garage to serve the proposed single-family dwelling. We're here tonight because we have an application before the zoning board for each of the 3 lots, and we're seeking permission, as Mr. Johnson said, to put driveways in the front yard of the new homes, and that requires a variance. in the design process, it became apparent that driveways could not be located as required in the zoning ordinance. They need to be in the front yards. There's no alley at the rear of the parcels to allow a driveway to be located in the rear of the lots. And I know Brittany's showing the exhibit. If you can see there's no driveway behind the lots. I'm sorry, there's no alley behind the lots. Just about every other parcel in the neighborhood has alley access in the rear, and our lots do not. Although one of our lots is adjacent to an alley, the grade from that alley to the lot is so steep, it won't allow a driveway. And also the sewer authority directed that the sewer main that we installed, it runs across the back of the properties. So it'd be difficult to put driveways back there anyway with the sewer main under the ground. Also, locating the driveways in the front yard is consistent with the neighborhood. Between 10th and 13th Avenue on Hollowell Street, there are 7 single-family detached dwellings that front on Hollowell Street. Of those 7, 6 of those have a driveway in the front yard already. So what we're proposing will not alter the character of the neighborhood, will not negatively impact adjacent property, and will not be detrimental to the public welfare. So we're requesting that you recommend to the zoning hearing board that they grant the relief we have requested. And with that, Mr. Rotowski and I are available for any questions.
I actually do have a question for Mr. Peters. Mike, I seem to remember when we passed the resolution, when we approved this, that the developer still has to go through land development. Is that still part of the?
Yeah, good question, Colleen. And I took the attorney for the developer, and I've actually been working through this. The answer is it's frankly not entirely clear. I think that generally speaking, when you have 3 properties like this, three lots that are being developed, you would go through land development. If council wants them to go through land development, I think that we have a fair interpretation under the resolution that they would need to do that. You could also recommend to the zoning hearing board that they impose a condition that if they move forward with the project, that they do go through land development. Now that's up to the zoning hearing board, obviously, as to whether or not they agree with that condition. But to answer your question directly, I think we can take the position that yes, they do have to go through land development. Jerry and I have been back and forth on it in good faith, working through that. If council's inclined this evening, you could recommend that as a condition. That's entirely within your discretion. And then of course the zoning hearing board would need to work through that. So hopefully I answered your question, Colleen, on that.
Yes.
If I can
I respond to that?
Yeah.
Can I have a quick response?
Okay.
Our position is we're not developing the 3 houses at the same time. We're going to do them one at a time as they're sold. Since we're selling them one at a time as they're sold, we don't believe it fits into the definition of land development. Therefore, a land development process is not required. And as Mike said, we are working through it. We're talking about it. We haven't come to a resolution yet. I think given that we haven't come to a resolution yet, suggesting such a condition to the zoning board might be premature.
Well, unless you're going to push your zoning hearing board hearing, I don't know that this council has a choice, unfortunately.
Right.
Well, they could choose to not recommend that.
Can I jump in real quick?
Who's speaking?
This is Rob Rotowski.
Yeah, of course.
So I know they're going back and forth on the whole land development, and I think that some of the key points of land development are, one would be curb and sidewalk, the other one would be stormwater management. I don't really know what other land development issues would really come into play here, but we are already, and I can make this as a condition when it comes. I'm not exactly sure where it would come into play. What's the right jurisdiction here? But we already have on this plan here that we plan on putting curb and sidewalk in. So when they mentioned earlier about doing curb cuts, there's actually no curb and sidewalk in front of this property at all on Hollowell Street. So we think it would be a better project to put curb and sidewalk in, because there is a lot of foot traffic, people walking, going to the park. And I actually live right across the street on Hollowell on the White Marsh side on 12th and Hollowell. So, and we don't have, and there's no curb and sidewalk on any of those houses there. So at least we would still be able to continue the curb and sidewalk in front of the houses, because on the lower side from the alley down to 11th, there is curb and sidewalk. So then it would just continue it would continue from the alley up to 12th Avenue. So I would like to, note that we want to do that anyway, and we would agree to do that. And also, as part of a good building project, you don't really just let your downspouts go into your yard anymore. So we already had our engineer design an area that would be in the front yard that would be able to accept water from basically piping the downspout drains from the houses right into a little stormwater control that's already on site. So there are two things that I would say that we already have, that we already plan on doing, we want to do, and we will agree to do condition-wise. So that might take care of that whole land development issue. And it's just mainly at this point, it's sort of a timing thing. Like I said, we're going to agree to things that would be in the land development anyway, but we have, there's been a tremendous amount of interest in these 3 lots. Every time we're out there, somebody stops, somebody wants, today's a realtor called me today and they want to, somebody wants to put a house there. And so we're trying to figure out the best way to approach this. If we're going to just build all 3 houses ourselves, if somebody wants to buy one of the lots and have their own builder build a house there. But in doing so, the timing wise, land development would be another 3 or 4 months push to go through that whole process. So hopefully if council is satisfied, I would, like I said, agree to the curb and sidewalk and agree to the stormwater management that would be able to accept the downspouts and the driveway runoff to be able to control that water. So hopefully that will shed some insight on this project.
Thank you, Rob. Mr. Peters, do you have input on that?
Yeah, so where you're left is, again, you can make, and you have before made this more or less exact recommendation to the zoning hearing board in the past. So it's within your discretion. You can make a recommendation to the zoning hearing board that they impose this condition, and again, they either will or they won't. To the extent the borough engineer needs to review stormwater management and curbs and sidewalks anyway, frankly, I don't know that the timing ends up being that different based on how quickly land developments move through the borough. But
right.
At the end of the day, the most important thing for me to say to all of you is it's up to you. It's within your discretion. So if you were inclined, you'd make a motion to recommend a condition that these 3 lots proceed through land development, or I could propose an alternative motion for you, but I'll propose that first and see if it goes anywhere. And if not, then we'll move on to the next one.
Okay. Do I have a motion for that?
Well, if I could just comment on that. So if the stormwater management and the curb and sidewalk is going to be discussed, there's going to be reviewed during the permit process of each building of each house, then it will be covered either way. It's just that if we do it during the permit process, we can actually, if we get approval through the zoning hearing board, we can actually apply for permits, within the next, couple of weeks. Whereas if it's land development, we have to wait to get the land development approved before we can go ahead and do so. So I think it would speed the project up a good, I'm going to say 3 to 4 months. So that's, I would, if I can suggest any conditions that, like I said, I would agree to the stormwater management for the downspouts and the curb and sidewalk, but asked that it would be done during the review process of the permitting process versus land development process.
So when we agreed to the subdivision of this property to begin with, did we not say that land development would be a condition of the subdivisions?
Yeah,
Yes.
good question, Tina. So the condition is that it needs to go through land development under the definition of land development under the municipality's planning code. When you have 3 lots that are developed, normally, yes, that is land development. What has now happened, because time has passed, is that plan has now been recorded, and the thought is to build lot by lot. I completely understand the desire to do so. However, if council wants to see this again, which it sounds as though you do, then I think the motion would be to recommend to the zoning hearing board that it come back for land development. And again, either the zoning hearing board can agree to that or not. That's up to them.
Right.
But I think Colleen had proposed that motion, so we
Yes,
probably.
I did. Is there anyone to make that motion?
So I will make the motion that we'll put it to the zoning hearing board with the condition of it going back to land development from the perspective of that is what we agreed to when we first agreed to the project moving forward.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Colleen.
Thank you, Jane. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay. And the next item on the agenda is a discussion on an amendment to the accessory structure section of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Peters?
Thank you very much, President Leonard. So this is the long-awaited amendment to your accessory structure section related to specifically parking garages. So we presented this in broad terms to you last month, and we now have a formally drafted ordinance for your consideration. It's been vetted by staff. I think we're very happy with where we ended up. So let me just give you a couple highlights and note for you that you're not doing anything with it this evening, but I would very much appreciate any feedback either tonight or between now and your next meeting. So we worked through administratively the concerns related to accessory structure generally and a larger accessory structure, and came to the conclusion that really the issue that the borough faces when it comes to accessory structures is, and we actually have one we're dealing with right now, is the issue of setbacks. So the First Amendment in this ordinance is requiring that the property lines be staked out before the accessory structure is installed. And that seems somewhat obvious, but it is a problem in the borough, and now you will have an ordinance provision requiring that to occur. And that addresses some of our concerns related to water runoff, for example, and of course, the never-ending process of trying to bring an enforcement action against someone after they've already placed a structure. There's then a provision that would allow for an additional 450 square feet in area for parking garages, only for parking garages. So other accessory structures, workshop storage areas still remain at 350 square feet. But for a parking garage, it goes up to 450 square feet. And the way that you are encouraging that to happen is you are exempting that additional 100 square feet from both building area and impervious coverage, so that an individual that wants to install a larger garage isn't pigeonholed or prevented from doing so because of impervious coverage or building coverage. Then we address the stormwater runoff concerns again by actually having the property line staked. And then the remaining sections of the ordinance are just because you're changing the building coverage and impervious surface coverage regulations, we just incorporate by reference those provisions into the BR1 and BR2 Borough Residential District sections of the zoning ordinance. So that's what's being proposed. We think it solves the problem. We've been working through it for some time now, so I welcome any additional thoughts either now or before your next meeting.
I think it's really important because a lot of homes now have 2 cars. This will give them that added space to be able to put both cars within the garage.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
larger vehicles.
Correct.
Yep, and that's exactly what we're shooting for. I mean, we're trying to get cars off the road,
Off the street.
and it'll make these properties more attractive. So anything else from anybody? I'd be happy to hear it. If not, we'll just keep moving.
I just think it's a great idea. It's something we've been working on and talking about for at least 18 months, if not 2 years. So thanks for working on that, Mike.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think we've actually been talking about it since like 2012 when I first got involved with the borough. So it's great. It's great that we're finally taking care of it. So I'm sure your zoning hearing board will appreciate not hearing these hearings anymore.
Yes. Okay, so if no one else has any questions, we'll move on to the next item, which is
Okay.
discussion on an amendment to the SP4 district signs standards section of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Peters?
Thank you, President Leonard. So another one that we've already talked about, but it's coming back to you because I had the opportunity to talk through it with your planning commission, which was a very productive conversation, and it did result in an important change that I'd like to walk through. Just very, very quickly, the biggest change, generally
I think
speaking.
you're cutting out.
Oh, really? Is that better?
We can't hear you.
Oh.
There we go.
Is that better?
That's better. It's getting better. Yes.
Okay, sorry about. I'm getting feedback, of course. I'm going to cut to the change so that I don't drive myself crazy. The change is that we have now provided a definition of allocated. So you'll recall that this ordinance gives different zoning signage requirements for buildings that are occupied by at least 95% by a single user. We now have a provision that deals with common areas. So obviously, part of that 95% is going to be common areas within the building. So we've tied that allocation to the financial responsibility for those areas, which usually come, as you know, in the form of common area maintenance CAM charges. And I think that thereby we've addressed the only concern of the Planning Commission. So unless you have any additional thoughts, this matter is actually before you for a hearing at your next meeting. So there's nothing for you to do tonight, but I welcome any thoughts. We vetted this for a few months now, so I think we're ready for the hearing.
Anyone on council have any questions for Mr. Peters?
No.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you very much, Council. Sorry about that cutting out there.
That's okay. The next item on the agenda is to conduct interviews for the position of zoning hearing board alternate. The first person for the interview is Terry Cummings. Good evening, Terry.
Good evening.
Thank you for applying for this position. Why do you want to serve as the zoning board or alternate?
Sure. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk and let you know. So I've been a resident of Conshohocken for almost 10 years. I live on West 6th Avenue. I just moved actually from West 3rd, so only a few blocks. And I have an interest both from growing up. My father has been a member of a zoning hearing board in the town I grew up in, Upper Southampton, for over 40 years. So I've always had an interest in it, just from watching him over the years. And from a business perspective, I've always been involved in sort of contract review, negotiations, and mediation. It just has an interest to me, and I think it's a great way to serve the community, sort of be part of the growth and review of what's happening in the community and get closer to where I'm living.
Thank you. Does anyone, council, have any questions? Okay, Terry, is there a particular issue you believe needs to be addressed by the zoning board?
That's a good question. I don't think there's any particular issues other than just sort of making sure that, as obviously I'm not an expert today, so as an alternate in the zoning board, learning and understanding how the board works and how it works with the community, but also just maintaining sort of the character and charm of Conshohocken within the zoning guideline and ordinances that are there today. So just being a part of that process, and as an alternate, I feel I'll get an opportunity to watch the process and grow, and I'm available to be a part of the process if needed.
Okay, thank you. I do have one more question. Do you feel you would have any issues voting as the rules of the zoning hearing board and the law requires, and not putting your personal and being able to put your personal feelings aside?
No, I don't believe that would be an issue at all. I think that's a cornerstone of being a part of a zoning hearing board.
Okay, thank you. Well, if no one else on council has any questions, I thank you for your time and your interest and appreciate your being with us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Leonard, I'm sorry, I was mute challenged. Terry, I just have one question if you're still there.
Certainly.
Have you gone to or been part of any of the zoning hearing boards over the last year?
I have not in Conshohocken, not in the last year.
Okay,
Yeah, nobody has.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for your interest. The next person for interview is Emily Tooney. Are you, I think you're muted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi there.
Hi. Well, thank you for your interest also in the zoning board alternate. So why do you want to serve as the zoning board alternate?
Sure. So, yeah, thanks for having me today. And I've been a resident of Conshohocken for the past 5 years. I live on East 9th in Ward 7. And I've just been interested in getting more involved in the community. I was a volunteer at Ward 1's voting place this past election, and I've been looking for other ways to get more involved. And with COVID-19, we've been taking a lot of walks around the neighborhood, and of course can't help but notice the exciting building going on. And so really wanted to kind of understand more about how these things worked, and saw that this alternate position was open and thought that serving as an alternate in particular would be a good place to start to learn more about it and serve the community.
Okay. Council? Okay.
Emily, I'll ask you the same question. Have you had the opportunity to join any of the Zoom meetings for the zoning hearing board over the last year?
I have not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Emily, and I do have one more question. Do you feel you would have any issue voting as the rules of zoning and the law requires and putting your personal feelings aside?
No, I don't. And I do have some sort of similar type experience working in nonprofits and having to interpret bylaws and following the rules that are set forth there, and understanding that if you don't like the rules, there are other ways to change them. So I understand that's not the role of this board, that this board is to interpret the rules that are there and follow the guidelines for assessing any variance that's requested.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on council have any more questions for Emily?
No.
Okay. Well, Emily, thank you for coming in this evening for your interview and your interest in the alternate position. We appreciate it. It's always great when residents do show interest, and we will be in touch soon. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks. And thank you all for your service. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is manager matters. Ms. Checo?
So there are two recurring items. One, both relate to COVID-19. The first is the extension of the local disaster emergency, and we are asking council extend that through May 5th of 2021. The motion is to approve resolution 2021-05, approving the extension. If inclined, do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion to Tino.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second with Mr. Griffin. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is a resolution that extends the temporary no parking areas within the borough. As everyone is aware, we are supportive of all of our dining facilities, and in order to facilitate takeout and outdoor dining, we've established no parking areas on the east side of Fayette Street, and we're asking that you continue those for a period of 90 days, and the motion is to approve resolution 2021-06, if so inclined.
I'll make that motion to Tino.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is under Department Matters, discussion on the EAC Residential Tree Replenishment Program. Mr. Sokolowski?
Before Mr. Sokolowski takes it, I just wanted to clarify one piece, that the tree replenishment program itself is borough managed and run, and that Mr. Sokolowski is working directly with our Shade Tree Commission members and the EAC to coordinate this effort. So Mr. Sokolowski, thank you.
So as we have done in the last 2 years, we've started to replenish some of the trees in our parks and our public properties, and we've done that through the help, not only help, but the actual work of the EAC. They've been not only helpful in coming up with some ideas where to put them, they've been extremely helpful through the whole process. And I see one of the members that's been an integral part of that, Tim Snyder, is on. So it's been so successful doing it in public locations that at the beginning of this, we did discuss on how to potentially do this in residential areas, and that becomes a little more complicated. But I think I've lived in Conshohocken most of my life, and if you start going through Conshohocken, driving the streets in Conshohocken, you start noticing we've had a lot of canopy loss, a lot of tree loss recently, and some of the older, larger trees have been lost, and it's becoming quite obvious that we should probably look into some type of replenishment program. Some residents have obviously shown interest in this. They've reached out and asked questions about this. So basically, this is to put it forward to the residents that we are actively looking at doing a residential tree replenishment plan. It will encompass documentation. We're going to look for funding for that, either through grants or somewhere in our budget. This year, we hope to be able to put some trees in if we can, based on our current budget. They wouldn't go into till the spring. That is a recommendation of the EAC, Tim Snyder. But after that, we would be looking at a larger program, and we would like to reach out to the residents and see what the interest is in that. And residents should contact the Borough of Conshohocken. The administrative assistant for operations, Bobby Joe Merciati's, will be taking those calls, and we'll be having conversations with residents, see if we can replenish some of these areas that obviously are starting to look, for lack of a better term, a little barren. Any questions on that? Okay, good.
Thank you, Ray. I think it's a great plan.
I think it'll make a difference.
Hey, Ray,
Yes.
can we get trees up at where the barn is?
Yep, that's part of the plan.
Awesome. Arborvitae's?
I'm leaving that to Tim Snyder, the tree expert.
Our arborist.
He does a great job. Thank you, Tim. Okay, so
I'm happy to
go ahead.
look at the site and see if I can come up with some recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know when you're up there.
Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ray. So the next item is just council member and mayor matters. Mayor Aronson, do you have anything this evening?
I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was on mute. So the Artist Loft on East Fifth Avenue had a fire almost exactly 2 years ago and has been closed. And the owner, Matt, has been working diligently to get it back on its feet. It looks awesome. It's totally renovated. He's really excited that he was able to remain in the borough. And he's encouraging, everyone to come visit and see all the local art that he has in the store. So So congratulations to Matt, and I wish him a lot of success keeping local arts in our borough. And
Yes,
then
it's nice.
the
Go ahead.
yes, yeah. And then the second thing I have is I've been running a series of events with the West Conshohocken Mayor, Danelle Fournier, and we're going. She challenged us to a best burger contest. So he's sitting down with her with some special guests on the 13th, and the Great American Pub is going to go against Spaghettaways, and we will be streaming that for everyone to watch. And again, it's just another way to highlight some of our local eateries, as we fight our way through this pandemic. So I hope you'll all join us on the 13th. And that is it.
Thank you, Mayor Aronson. Mr. Stokely,
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
you're welcome. Ms. Barton,
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Tino,
Nothing, thank you.
okay, Ms. Flanagan,
It's a quiet night. I have nothing either, Colleen.
okay. Mr. Griffin,
Yes, I got one thing for Ray and the code enforcer. Next door to me is apartment houses. It's got 4 apartments in it. 1 recycle can and 1 trash can. They emptied it on Monday. Tuesday is full again. The trash is all over the street and everything. So I'd like Ray to look into the owner and tell him he's got to get a couple more trash cans and stuff before this gets summertime, because it's a mess out there. Thank you.
thank you, Ike. Vice President Sokolowski,
No, I have nothing for tonight. Thank you.
you're welcome. We'll now move on to public comment. Brittany, do we have any submitted comments?
President Leonard, before we get to the actual public comment portion, just want to make a reminder to everyone that the public comment is limited to 2 minutes. At this time, is there anyone on the line that has public comment not related to the sewer authority?
I have a comment.
Okay. Can you state your name and address?
My name is Amanda Lillick. I live on 109 Forest. I have a concern with trash as well. I haven't really gotten out of the house much due to the pandemic. However, when I did around the corner, there's an immense amount of garbage from nudies all on the sidewalk, bags on the sidewalk, trash down the street. That wonderful windstorm the other day, that took trash places. It's just very unkempt, and I'm concerned for springtime and animals and, the residents down here.
Thank you, Amanda. I have a note. We'll follow up with nudies regarding that concern.
Thank you.
Of course. If there's no other public comment on the topic other than the sewer authority, then I'll move on to just a quick timeline, and then we'll move into public comment. Even though the sewer authority is not on the agenda, we will allow public comment during the work session. It's important for us to gather the public comment at this time as council continues to move through the process, and we will take all the comments. We have both those that were submitted in writing via email and any comments this evening on the call itself. Those comments will be compiled and utilized again as council continues to move through the process. So just for everyone's benefit to understand kind of how we got to this point, we started with evaluation of this system in April of 2019. That valuation report was provided to the borough in July of 2019. In November of 2019, phase 2 was approved for the sale exploration with PFM. In December of 2019, the RFQ was approved and we appointed special legal counsel. Also in December of 2019, the RFQ was released. In January of 2020, the RFQ responses were due. The summary of the RFQ responses were provided from PFM to the borough. We reviewed those responses in January as well. And then from February of 2020, the 11th through the 13th, we held management meetings with the RFQ responders. And then unfortunately in March of 2020, COVID hit. and we pressed pause on the process. We waited until around October and November of 2020 to revisit the topic. In November, one of the entities was removed from the process. We felt they were not in the best interest of the borough at that point. And then we followed up with administrative calls with the 3 remaining entities. On December 2nd of 2020, there was an update to council on the RFB process, what that process was going to look like. And then on December 16th, our special legal counsel provided clarification on the ordinance and the conveyance process. On January 6th of 2021, advertisement for the RFB, the conveyance ordinance, and the rate resolution were discussed at the public work session. On January 20th, 2021, council authorized the advertisement of the RFB and the ordinance. On February 12th, the bids were due and received. On February 19th, those bid documents were provided to council to review. The bid results have since then been reviewed and discussed by Borough Council, and the bids will be presented to the public in a formal presentation during the voting session on March 17th. April will be further analysis as we move closer to a final decision. So just wanted to paint a picture of the timeline that started in 2019 that continues today. And with that being said, then we'll turn it over to Ms. Rogers at this point to read the public comment that was submitted in writing. Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Ms. Checo. 10 individuals submitted written public comment. The first comment is from Cynthia Johnson, 214 Maple Street. Ms. Johnson writes, I am totally against the sale of the Conshohocken sewer system. I am disabled and a widow on a fixed income. I cannot afford higher costs and higher taxes. I have been a resident of this community for over 30 years. There's got to be a way to cut spending to help seniors remain in the town without putting them in the poorhouse. The next comment is from Timothy Snyder, 236 West 3rd Avenue. Mr. Snyder writes, I, Tim Snyder, 14-year resident at 236 West 3rd Avenue, am writing to voice my concern about the council's interest in even thinking about selling our nonprofit sewer. Our private sewer plant is a priceless asset, a source of pride and security in our town. Pride in the fact that it has been well run for over 20 years, and security in the fact that the money stays in the community and rates stay reasonable because it is a nonprofit to serve us, not shareholders or corporate owners. Selling the sewer would unfairly impact lower income residents in our town, and there is no doubt that rates will increase dramatically if sold. The big for-profit sewer companies have no incentive to do as good of a job as we have done, and it doesn't take much to see that it has been a huge mistake for many other communities that have sold their sewer plants. In closing, as this is one of our town's great assets, I sincerely hope that you will give the people of the town the respect they deserve by allowing them to vote for themselves should council decide there is any interest to move forward, as this decision will affect the residents of Conshohocken and surrounding boroughs and townships long into the future. The next comment is from Lisa Lilick, 804 Forest Street. Ms. Lilick writes, I am writing once again to protest the sale of our sewer system. Simply stated, it is not in the best interest of the residents of Conshohocken and West Conshohocken to sell our publicly owned nonprofit utility to a for-profit company. The shift to a for-profit model will result in high increases for the ratepayers to satisfy the demands of highly compensated executives and their shareholders. The companies that are buying sewer systems all over Pennsylvania and other states are on their way to becoming monopolies. Instead of primarily focusing on plant capacity, maintenance, and improvements of our sewer authority, as our sewer authority has, the focus will shift to recovering the huge amounts they have paid for the sewer systems and to maximizing profits. While town leaders all over seem to be seeing dollar signs due to the millions of dollars being offered for their systems, we must remember that the more a company pays, the more they will need to recover from residents. This is not conjecture. This is a fact. This is a fact based on what has happened in other townships who have sold. Included in this email is a memorandum from the House of Representatives on House Bill 144 that I would like you to read aloud. Representative Christine DeSappi introduced the bill because she believes there should be a water ratepayers bill of rights. The bill covers water and wastewater systems. While it is not yet passed, our Representative Mary Jo Daly supports it and has signed up to co-sponsor it. It would call for leaders such as Borough Council to be transparent with their residents, and frankly, I don't believe that is happening. I have repeatedly requested to have a notice sent to residents to let them know the sale is a possibility and that a decision is imminent. As recently as yesterday, one member of our council was still replying to concerns by saying, "We are looking, not selling." And boroughs and townships need to know the monetary value of their properties. While these statements may be true, they are misleading. They are meant to soothe the residents and put their minds at ease about possible sale, when in fact it will be decided on by April or May. Based on this timeline, it's extremely important for residents to speak up now if they object to the sale. Representative Sappi really listened to her constituents and believes they deserve to have rights in situations like the one we find ourselves in. While it's true that this bill will most likely not be passed in time for residents here, Borough Council can decide to agree that we should have a say in something this monumental and permanent. So now I'm going to read the memo from Christina DeSappi with the subject Water Ratepayer Bill of Rights. I have heard concerns from many constituents in my district regarding the acquisition process for a local water authority. My constituents feel that they have very little say in the process, and I agree. Residential customers deserve the chance to have their voices heard when the source of their water comes into question. In order to ensure residential customers all over the state have a fair say in this process, I am proposing legislation for a Water Ratepayer Bill of Rights. This comprehensive bill will require a selling utility to conduct a ratepayer referendum where customers will be able to voice issues they have with a possible water utility acquisition. This bill will also require water and wastewater utilities to publish an annual report with information regarding average residential billing amounts. By doing this, we will also prevent utilities from inflating their costs to residential consumers. We must ensure the accountability of the utilities that serve residents where they live, work, and raise their families. We need a system that gives ratepayers a voice and shared information to ensure their families are receiving safe services. Ratepayers deserve a fair deal. Join me so we can create a better system and provide ratepayers with transparency and rights. The next comment is from Jackie Cole, 810 Forest Street. Ms. Cole writes, as a longtime resident and homeowner for over 20 years at 810 Forest Street, I am opposed to the sale of the sewer system. The sale of the sewer system is lose-lose for the borough residents. The next comment is from Christina Worth, 134 West 9th Avenue. Ms. Worth writes, I've previously written to you all individually, but I am again reaching out to relay some additional concerns and to ensure that my comments reach our community members and become a part of the public record. As a tax-paying homeowner in Conshohocken, please allow me to express my strong opposition of the privatization of the municipal sewer system. As a solution for budgetary shortcomings to fund long-approved infrastructure repair projects, I find this sale incredibly short-sighted. What solution will we be faced with when the capital from the sale is exhausted, but the borough has an ongoing need for road repairs, infrastructure upkeep, and ever-increasing expenses? A single windfall from the sale of the sewer system at the expense of borough residents is not a viable solution to this issue. As a homeowner forced to utilize whatever sewer system option is provided to me, I am gravely concerned by the impact the privatization would have on the community. I had previously sent all council members a 2017 Washington Post article entitled "Towns Sell Their Public Water Systems and Come to Regret It." And I encourage community members and council to read it, as it does a good job of outlining the sobering impacts other communities have been faced after similar municipal utility privatization efforts passed. In summary of the article, many communities have grown to regret the privatization of their water systems due to the nauseating usage rate hikes and dismay over poor service, disgraceful system upkeep, lack of forthcoming transparent safety data, and costly legal disputes between municipalities and private companies over who foots the bill for costly infrastructure repairs. Currently, our borough sewer system is well maintained and affordable. The sewer employees and trustees are residents of Conshohocken who have shared interest in keeping rates affordable and the system in good working order. Selling to a corporation would shift the balance of power to a non-local corporate shareholders. For over 20 years, the system has met DEP standards and received over $2 million in grants, which has saved our community members money. Currently, at state level, the Pennsylvania House of Representatives is considering a bill set forth by Representative Christina D. Sappy, the Water Ratepayer Bill of Rights, which would reform the acquisition process for water and wastewater systems, ensuring that residential customers do not experience inflated rates. Nationally, the Water Affordability, Transparency, Equity, and Reliability Act was introduced February 25th with the support of the Biden administration and would allocate $35 billion in annual federal funding to community sewer infrastructure improvements. Our community could become ineligible for these grants and protections should the sewer system become privatized now. This would cause maintenance costs to be passed to the consumer in the form of rate hikes we otherwise wouldn't need to experience. In addition to these practical concerns, I have serious ethical concerns over the timing and haste of conducting conversations and a vote regarding such an impactful topic on the community without proper community input. While it's clear that the budget funding must come from somewhere, with the short-sightedness of the solution, I question if the council may be motivated by shifting the blame of rising costs to a private company rather than face the accountability as elected representatives, especially as an election for multiple neighborhood council members and mayor looms this year. Furthermore, while the Borough Council has openly cited the impact of COVID-19 as a factor limiting their ability to consider alternative solutions to raise capital for the budget deficit, you must recognize that COVID-19 has had major impact on community members in similar ways. Many residents are unemployed, underemployed, or struggling to balance childcare and educational needs in ways that they have never had to before. Small businesses, which are usually a shining highlight of the community, are still struggling. Not only does the potential of exuberant rate hikes not bode well with these already struggling community members, but many community members are simply too strained or exasperated after weathering the frankly exhausting year to advocate and voice for their concerns at such a time. In my personal conversation with neighbors and friends in the community, I have found that they universally oppose such a sale and feel limited in their abilities to make their voices heard or express despair that they feel they are going to unheard. I urge the council to take more time to consider this matter and do their due diligence as elected representatives to listen to their neighbors and to represent the needs and desires of their constituents. I urge the borough to either oppose the privatization of their municipal sewer system or to hold a public referendum regarding any potential sale, especially with pending local and federal legislation that will benefit the borough. Even in the event of an ultimate sale, it's imperative that we do not commit to a sale of the sewer system at this time. Thank you for your time and consideration. The next comment is from Deborah Beer, Miss Forest Street. Ms. Beer writes, "My name is Deborah Beer. I live on Forest Street in Conshohocken. I do not believe the sale of our sewer system is beneficial to the residents of our town. If you look into other places that have done this, you will find that the burden of costs were put on the residents. I have read that the money from the sale would be used to repair the roads, which I agree is needed. But there has to be other ways to obtain those funds. We have endured all of the construction, which I feel is destroying the neighborhood, especially for the children. We should not have to endure the financial ramifications of this sale. During times of struggle for most families due to the pandemic, our elected officials need to step up and help the people. Please consider finding other means to pay for the roads that doesn't cause more hardship to area families. The next comment is from Samantha Hildebrand, 207 East 10th Avenue. Hi, my name is Samantha Hildebrand. I reside at 207 East 10th Avenue. I'm opposed to the sale of the sewer system. This is a short-term gain of cash for the borough with long-term loss for the residents. First, think why private companies want to buy the sewer authority in the first place, to make money. Who are they making money from to get return on their investment? Conshohocken residents. Roads will always need to be repaired. Getting money from the sale of a sewer system won't stop additional repairs needed in the future. Please raise my taxes instead. I want the sewer system to be under Conshohocken control. It is a public asset, and we, the people, should have a choice in the matter. Privatizing the system may keep rates the same for 3 years, but after that, rates have tripled in other townships. Don't make a permanent decision because you are afraid of the backlash of raising taxes. Please do your research on what has happened to other townships that have sold. I urge you to vote no, but if you are leaning toward yes, at least put it on the ballot for residents to make the decision. The next comment is from Carol Smith, 109 Maple Street. Ms. Smith writes, to council, manager, and my fellow Conshohocken residents, homeowners, businesses, and renters, as this issue affects anyone living in Conshohocken. As a longtime resident, first as a renter, then as a homeowner, concerned with the good governance of our community resources, I oppose the sale of our nonprofit public utility, the Conshohocken Sewer Authority, for the following reasons. Number one, once it's gone, it's gone. The residents of Conshohocken lose the substantial infrastructure they have maintained over the decades. We lose the land, the buildings, pipes, access, and control. There are many communities that regret their sale of their public water utilities. It is almost impossible to ever get it back without substantial costs and legal entanglements. Number two, corporate owners will raise rates higher than a nonprofit utility. This is a fact, and it's also embedded in Act 12 legislation. The purchaser of your community asset is allowed to recoup their costs of purchase, the rates we were paying before it was sold, costs, any expenses involved, and then raise rates to make a profit. They're also allowed to raise rates if an adjoining community or zone community is purchased by them. This means your rates go when they purchase someone else's sewer. This affects businesses, homeowners, and renters, anyone who flushes the toilet. Number three, the sale is effectively a backdoor tax on the residents. Rates will go up, and those excessive corporate rates will always impact fixed, lower, and middle-income people unfairly and with the greatest consequence. Although the median salary in Conshohocken is an eye-popping $81,000 a year, with our approximately 8,100 residents, there are many, myself included, who are on a moderate, fixed, or low income. Instead of a tax graduated to income, those with the least will incur high bills that impact their meager budgets. I know my elderly neighbors who do not have access to these issues via computer are upset and concerned. They feel abandoned. Number four, most communities that finally resort to selling their assets are distressed communities. Their communities were not well run and their sewer systems were in need of excessive upgrades and repair. Our sewer is exceptionally well maintained and run. Our infrastructure has been maintained and upgraded and is actually a great example of good stewardship for now. Number five, King of Prussia considered the sale of their publicly held sewer system, and the following transpired. KOP Supervisor Carol Kenny wrote a reply to a constituent's question on the issue of their own contemplation of selling their sewer system. Upper Merion decided not to sell our sewer system. Short-term gain and long-term pain. Our thinking. We as a township can raise rates reasonably as necessary to cover increased expenses, repair, replacement, and maintenance costs. We only have to cover our costs. We already own the system. If an outside company buys your system, they have to get back their investment somehow by raising your rates. If they are a company with stakeholders, they have to make profit too. They need to increase rates for that too. Also, once your system is sold, it's gone. And once you spend the money you got for it, that's gone too. What's left? Ever increasing rates. Carol Kinney. In further conversation, she stated that to us, if it is that valuable of an asset to an outside corporation, it is in the best interest of our residents to keep and maintain that asset for community good. Number 6, timing. Residents deserve to know the exact status of these proposals and the timing of such. It's curious that it is being done while the Water Ratepayer Bill of Rights, House Bill 144, is being brought up. Representative Christina D. Sappy is sponsoring this legislation and will be supported by our own Representative Mary Jo Daly. This is confirmed. Residents should understand the importance of this legislation and the curious timing of the proposed sale. Representative Sappy had this to say. I have heard concerns from many constituents in my district regarding the acquisition process for a local water authority. My constituents feel that they have very little say in the process, and I agree. Residential customers deserve the chance to have their voices heard when the source of their water comes into question. In order to ensure the residential customers all over the state have a fair say in this process, I am proposing legislation for the Water Ratepayer Bill of Rights. This comprehensive bill will require a selling utility to conduct a ratepayer referendum where customers will be able to voice their issues they have with a possible water utility acquisition. This bill will also require water and wastepayer utilities to publish an annual report with information regarding the average residential billing amounts. By doing this, we will also prevent utilities from inflating their costs to residential consumers. We must ensure the accountability of these utilities that serve residents where they live, work, and raise their children, their families. We need a system that gives ratepayers a voice and shared information to ensure their families are receiving safe services. Ratepayers deserve a fair deal. Join me. We can create a better system and provide ratepayers with transparency and rates. Number 7, what is the current financial situation of the borough, and what is this lump sum money earmarked for? Conshohocken receives municipal liquid fuels program funding designed for road repairs, as do many of our neighboring communities. Those neighboring communities generally have a rolling timetable of scheduled road repair that is flexible in timing with regard to finances and costs. Roads, too, will also need repair. What is our status on these issues? Number 8, interested and concerned citizens can join the local group COPE. Conshohocken opposes privatization efforts, Save Our Sewer, to help pursue all legal recourses to the sale. The next comment is from Jason Sorrow for Nathan's Place in West Conshohocken. West Conshohocken residents should be able, Mr. Sorrow writes, West Conshohocken residents should be able to voice their concerns. We have no choice but the Conshohocken Authority when it comes to sewer access, seeing as our system was sold to Conshohocken. Please, I respectfully ask Borough Council of Conshohocken, do not sell the sewer system. It will be short-term gain, long-term pain for all of our residents. And the last comment is from Alexander Holmes, 211 Front Street in West Conshohocken. Mr. Holmes writes, I am writing in regard to the proposed sale of the Conshohocken sewer utility, which is currently up for discussion in Borough Council. Privatization efforts for municipal utilities, particularly water and sewer utilities, saw a sharp increase throughout the 80s and 90s, which serves us to look at case studies of the success and failures of these efforts so we can better learn from them. Primarily, the efforts to privatize these utilities have shown limited success, and long-term longitudinal studies have shown that private companies do not increase efficiency and servicing for government-owned entities. A recent McKinsey study showed the privatization efforts of water and sewer systems in the American Midwest have only been successful when done as a market entry into low-income and impoverished neighborhoods with crumbling infrastructure from decades, sometimes over a century of neglect. Conshohocken and the surrounding regions are in fact middle-income municipalities that are not experiencing a crumbling infrastructure. While privatization efforts can be a great benefit to low-income neighborhoods, they are not efficiently improvement or cost savings move for local governments. Furthermore, while budget shortfalls may dictate a need for capital infusion in the short term, sale of a public water and sewer system yields long-term tax increases and rate increases versus a control group government-owned utilities. When analyzing the rates of private versus municipal utilities over time, the private rate overtakes the municipal rate by statistically significant amounts that residents must pick up. In addition, private companies will not and have not shown a record of setting aside an escrow for future infrastructure fixes and upgrades, which results in an increased customer rates on top of them coming back to the service municipalities to push tax increases on residents to upgrade systems. This may not happen for 5, 10, 20 years down the road, but the cost imbalances grossly outweigh the benefits for residents and for Borough Council. In closing, examples from across the past 4 decades in the United States have shown success in privatization when applied to low-income, antiquated infrastructure markets and glaring mid to long-term drawbacks resulting in cost increases and service failures for mid to upper income municipalities. I understand the borough's desire to bolster the budget with this move. The evidence shows that it is not the best path forward for a capital infusion, let alone a move that is in the best interest of the public. P.S. Texas just showed a massive failure of private utilities that failed the public good. Profit motive for utilities has shown considerable failures over the history of both our nation and others around the world. That concludes the written public comments.
Thank you, Brittany. Do we have someone for public comment? Is there anyone for public comment this evening?
Yes, I do.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Sure. My name's Jim McCusker. I'm from 131 Moore Avenue in West Conshohocken.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay. So I'm currently a resident of 131 Moore Avenue in West Conshohocken, where our sewer is serviced by Conshohocken Sewer Authority. It's my firm belief that the proposed sale of the Conshohocken Sewer Authority is not in the public's best interest. I stand opposed to any privatization of any community utility such as this. After the passage of Act 12 in 2016, communities all over Pennsylvania have been selling off their valuable utility assets with myopic, short-term financial benefits, which ignore the long-term impact to ratepayers once profits become the focus. I personally have no problem with for-profit private companies, but only when such companies have competition. And that's the key to my argument. Selling off a borough's sole utility to a private company creates a local monopoly with no competition. It's a great business model if you can afford to buy up one of these assets, since you can quickly maximize your profits once the rate grace periods end. You simply stay within the lines of the PUC rules, and you can easily project your long-term profits without ever worrying about competition. It's a great idea. Furthermore, selling off our utility is simply a backdoor tax in the long term. Local politicians avoid raising taxes while ratepayers end up paying more in utility costs as the years pass by. In reality, the proceeds from the sale are akin to a long-term loan which never gets paid off. In the end, costs get passed to the ratepayers regardless of whether it's a tax or a bill being paid to a private monopoly whom you had little recourse. I don't want Conshohocken to have the same seller's remorse that many other communities in Pennsylvania now have as they look at skyrocketing utility bills, which they have no recourse other than moving. Why a for-profit monopoly is even permitted in Pennsylvania is beyond my understanding. The sale of Conshohocken Sewer Treatment Facility will create a legal monopoly for a private company and shift the fiduciary focus from the needs of Conshohocken's residents to the profit and growth objectives of external shareholders, executives, and board members. I assure you, Conshohocken residents will soon regret your proposed decision once their rates continue to rise as they discover they have little recourse. While the Borough Council says they are just exploring options, the recent actions indicate that they are moving forward with the sale. Why else would they convey the sewer system, property, and assets to the borough? This is all being done to speed up the process of the sale. I've recently helped put together a Facebook group called COPE, Conshohocken Opposes Privatization Efforts, with the help of the Norristown NOPE group, who successfully blocked a similar sale of their utility. The people of Conshohocken deserve a say in the proposed sale of COPE, and COPE is actively preparing to gather enough signatures to force a referendum vote upon the sale. Conshohocken's residents are taking notice, and they are quickly learning about the long-term negatives of selling our community assets. COPE's objective is to give this decision back to the community where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Come on. Fucking.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no one else for public comment, we can adjourn the meeting. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.